It's high time I start talking about positive stuff. So let's fast forward a bit. Let's say it's a year from now, and we have said enough of this fascist fuck who's in office, enough of him just making a mockery of our democracy, our freedoms, our checks and balances. So let's say we finally put him in prison where he belongs, and we just ignore him. Stop giving him attention, please. Let's say we've done that, and then we're like, okay, how did this happen? Like, we have checks and balances, we have a justice system, we have the Constitution. How did this man do what he did? And then from there, I think we'll realize that our system is actually kind of garbage and oppressive. Like, the system itself is oppressive. My name is Tim. I create videos that shed light on the absurdities of modern society, as well as highlight humanity's creativity, resilience, and compassion. I believe we need to start publicly acknowledging that capitalism is doing more harm than good. It's important that we talk about sustainable and ethical alternatives, not on the sidelines, but in the mainstream. If you doubt that this will ever happen, I ask that you consider that your very doubt is a reflection of how insidiously controlling our system is. How healthy is it to be so resistant to change that you'd rather tolerate endless violence than even discuss it? This is a touchy subject, and my style may not be for everyone, but if my videos do resonate with you, please leave a like. Let's just say we're thinking about starting fresh, as we should, right? We don't want another guy to show up and do exactly what Trump did, or maybe worse, since now people know it's possible to take advantage of our system the way that he is. So let's say he's in jail, and we're like, okay, we're starting fresh. Let's talk about that. First of all, I think we should this is just my opinion, but like, would it not be a good idea to give people what they need? Would that not be the opposite of where we're at now, where we had all these problems? Like, if people just had what they needed, then they'd not only want to contribute to society in a positive way, but they'd have the resources to do so. There'd be nothing holding them back. So it's kind of opposite of how we might just assume in our heads, because we're just so used to things being backwards, right? But let's just say that most of us at least, are smart enough and compassionate enough to realize that the better off society is, the better off I am, right? Like, that doesn't take a 30-minute expose. Like, we just know that, right? The better off my family is, the better off my community is, the better off I'm gonna be. Because if they're all suffering, if my community is like burning, infrastructure is crumbling, I'm obviously gonna be stressed the fuck out. I'm gonna feel unsafe. There's probably gonna be a lot of violence in the streets. So say we're acknowledging that we need to not do that we need to instead give people what they need. What would that look like? Obviously, delivering free healthcare, free education, free housing, free food, right? How is that funded? And that's the kicker. What if we got rid of money, right? Because currently, by placing a value on everything, we then look to the money to derive value from the thing that we should just be deriving value from. Because, like, if you want any kind of good product or service that you can think of that you would want, in this current system, you need money to get that thing. And so literally everything, including all the things that you need, food, shelter, those things are secondary to money, because you can't get those things without money currently. We all know the definition of money, roughly, is a medium that provides the fluid exchange of goods, services, and products, right? Can't AI and automation do a better job than saying, oh, no, you can't have that because you don't have money? Couldn't we just, like, automate everything at this point? Would that not be much quicker and easier than be like, oh, hold on, what's your credit score? We're going to put a pause on this loan approval. Does that not make more sense? Instead of sitting there and tracking every single penny in everyone's fucking bank account for every single person on this planet, endless ads that give you sales pitches that make things sound really enticing, even though you don't necessarily afford those things. But what I'm trying to say is, like, everybody is coming for your money. Would it not just be easier to just not have to deal with all that? Like, imagine someone breaks into your house and steals everything you own. Rather than being devastated and having to start fresh, busting your ass off at your career for years to make up for that, like, say the money wasn't returned or was somehow lost, completely lost, and insurance didn't want to cover it. Well, that's another thing. Insurance, they're fucking predatory too. But anyway, instead of having to do all of that, what if you could just be like, okay, well, I'll just go get a new home and I'll just get new things that I need. And it's just one easy transaction. I need a new car. Okay, here you go. Not, what's your credit score? How much do you make every year? How much can you afford to pay back every month in payments. None of that bullshit. So again, a year from now, or whenever, hopefully less, for fuck's sake, Trump's in jail, we're forgetting about him, we're remembering the horrible shit he did so that we can make sure it doesn't happen again. We're giving people what they need rather than holding it hostage for the sake of money, because we realized that the only reason we had money in the first place was to simplify the exchange of goods, products, and services, but we can do that much easier with automation and AI now. We are not only just giving lip service to the truth that the better off society is, the better off the individual is, but we're actually acting on that. We're actually incentivizing that. We're making it easier for people to relate to each other. Because right now, as someone who lives paycheck to paycheck, it's so hard to relate to someone who's middle class and well off and can go on vacations 2 to 3 times or even more a year. Like, I can't relate to that person. I feel like they're living in a totally different world right now. But in this future, that we can all totally alter the decisions and the finer details to whatever we like, because it's going to be a more democratic process than what we have now, because we think we have choices, but really it's just like garbage or less garbage, evil or lesser evil. But I'm talking about actually having more real power, democratic power. And the idea that people that wouldn't want to work in that, like, I'm busting my ass off to, like, make these videos. And, like, I know I've just been bitching a lot, but it's like a build-up. You can't just jump into it because people are going to be like, oh, some utopian bullshit, Tim. But it's grounded in knowing how fucked we are now. Like, people wouldn't give a shit about this stuff if there wasn't pressure on us now. If there wasn't the Trump of our time being a bull in a china shop of our fucking country. There have been people trying to talk about this for a long ass time. Jacques Fresco, he came up with resource-based economy back in the 70s. He was on Larry King Live, and no one gave a shit because their lives were comfortable. But imagine having the freedom to explore your passions. Obviously not like completely unhindered, but way less hindered than now. Especially if your passion is something that doesn't pay well. If you're an artist that creates stuff, and I'm sure you've heard the term starving artist. Like, people, they just need to create stuff. They need to express themselves and make this stuff that isn't necessarily going to make them rich, but they still do it because it brings meaning to their life. But imagine being able to explore that stuff and bring meaning to your life without worrying about paying for your mortgage. I do want to say, first of all, that stuff is vital. Inspiring other people, reminding people of why we're alive. We so often dismiss art as this thing that we don't need in our lives, that can just take a back seat to everything else. But that's one of our needs, is entertainment and inspiration. So I just wanted to say, yeah, first of all, art is super important to humanity. And second of all, there are people with other passions that are more hands-on as far as helping to sustain society. Like, people are passionate about educating. Imagine being able to do that without having to stress out about the budget being so constricted in your classroom that you have to pay for your supplies. And imagine it being easier to work with other faculty members about maybe the lesson plan or whatever, because everyone's in a way better mood and more cooperative. And they're not cranky all the goddamn time like everyone is in this society. Imagine everyone's eating healthy food, by the way, which also helps with improved mood because they're not being fed a bunch of garbage in their food. That's a totally different subject, but imagine being able to travel, like go to see the Sistine Chapel and be able to spend a week or a month there learning about the art. Think about history in awe and reverence, rather than just, oh, hurry up and read this thing, feeling like we're always rushed and have to be somewhere. We could take the time to appreciate art and history more. Imagine travel being easier. You wouldn't have to deal with boarding passes and tickets and airplane companies having a budget on how many planes they can put in service, or bus stations having a certain amount of buses they can have in service. They would just meet the demand, because they wouldn't have to budget for it. Kind of a unexpected bonus, but a bonus nonetheless. But who's gonna drive the buses and the airplane? Combination of those who feel passionate about doing that and automation. You could fully automate that stuff right now. But who's gonna maintain that automation can fully automate maintenance robots. And the maintenance robots can maintain themselves. But what about garbage pickup? No one wants to do that. Full automation. But what about accounting and tax filing? No one likes to do that. And you don't have to if there's no money. But what about nuclear threats? You know, the number one driver of violence is inequality. People seeing themselves as less than others and then add feeling like they've been disrespected on top, and that's the perfect recipe for violence. So in a society that we're all equal to one another and emphasizing compassion and tolerance, that shit would pretty much disappear overnight. And we would get rid of the nuclear warheads because we would not need them anymore. We should at least be reducing it, right? And picture being able to, this is kind of random, but picture being able to try like any ice cream that you want, because you could just be like, yo, automated ice cream maker, I want to try this flavor in my ice cream. And it's not like, oh, that doesn't sell, so we're not serving that. No, they would just automatically make it for you because it would have it on hand. I know that's super random, and that could be applied for many, many other things too. That in our current system, we basically only have the options of what everyone else would have an interest in, or most other people, the supermarket or whatever. Aside from that all being mostly poison with like a bunch of additives and processed shit, and literal bug poison, which is what preservatives are, or not literal bug poison, which is what pesticides are, and then preservatives that are just as bad as bug poison. Aside from all that, there's the whole fact that people don't sell stuff that doesn't sell. No point in carrying it if it's just going to sit on their shelves. But the people who, I mean, how often has it, maybe it's just some people, but I'm pretty sure most people have had moments in their lives when a grocery store stopped selling something that they liked, and it was frustrating. But like, they got to make a profit. They got to keep stuff, or they can only keep stuff on their shelves that's going to sell. So imagine that not being a restriction anymore. So eat your turkey flavored ice cream. Have your lemon-flavored anchovies. And you know what? This can be kind of fun, like thinking of all the different wild shit that would be different and that the wild shit we could come up with. Because that's the point of life, right? Not to suffer endlessly under an oppressive fucking system, but to play and cooperate and serve a higher power as well as the community, which then in turn comes back to us. Imagine being able to get a massage whenever you need it, rather than be like, oh, that's not in the budget. It's like $100 fucking for a massage. I can't afford that right now. Just go and have it either automation or someone who's passionate about giving massages because it's a healing thing and people like to facilitate that for others. Imagine being able to freely share information, not having to worry about bullshit copyright. Because, oh my God, that restricts information so much just so that the person that came up with the idea or put genuine time into it, which that's fair enough, but like the whole concept of coming up with an idea or whatever, that kind of pisses me off because we all just steal ideas all the time. Like no one has an original concept. It's just like the evolution of things. Like you can't conceive of something that doesn't at least exist in its parts already somewhere else. But yeah, imagine the freely sharing information because people don't need the money that comes with copywritten stuff. So it's just like all out there. Any music that you can think of, any blueprints to a 3D printer, automatically shared for free. And that's kind of like been the trend a little bit with 3D printing, I think. I don't know. I'm actually not at all involved in that stuff, so I don't know. But from what I've seen, there's at least a lot of stuff that's shared open source with that. But imagine everything being open source. Everything. Not just open source, but ethically sourced. Because right now, we are taking resources from poor countries, giving them pennies on the dollar of what we should be giving them so that we can make profits. And it's just terrible. Like our so-called civilized society that's experiencing so-called economic prosperity is coming at the cost of first world countries we're stealing resources from. So imagine more time would be spent problem solving restrictions on what we can and cannot take from the land. We would just like, well, first of all, we'd freely share the information so that it would all be available to everybody, what's available, what's not. There'd be no insider knowledge about like where to go for the best spot for the best gold or the best like fishing hole. And then you'd think that, then everyone's gonna flock to those places and just totally wipe them out. But no, there'd be no need to wipe them out because we would be mindfully giving people what they need so that they don't have to hoard or over extract or harvest. Yes, there's only so many fishing ponds in the world with good tilapia or whatever, but we could easily automate tilapia farm and make sure that they're ethically done and fed with really high nutrients so that the meat tastes good as any watering hole. Likewise, when it comes to minerals and stuff, like I know gold is obviously high value, but why? Other than it's used in like microchips, but we could totally come together, brainstorm, and come up with other products that could be used instead without having to throw our business model out. And say we find a material for phones that's actually more efficient. The people who have the inefficient materials in stock wouldn't then have to write a write-off in their company for a loss of that material that no longer is going to be used in a product because it's inferior. Like, they don't have to worry about that budget. They can just get the damn new product. Sorry that took so much to spit that out. Words are getting really hard right now. Imagine there's no longer technology suppression, because fossil fuel industry companies, they have the rights to this stuff that could be so much more efficient and less dependent on fossil fuels, but they would go out of business. So they buy the patents and then they just sit on them, suppress that technology. And imagine things being built really well from the get-go without planned obsolescence or inferior products so that someone can make a profit, which, by the way, would be safer. There'd be less risk of something blowing up or less chance of a car breaking down, having you stranded on the highway. Although that wouldn't really be a big deal in this new society, because you could just have another car sent to you. You could call or indicate somehow, text alert with your phone, which would be free, by the way, and then another one would show up. And then for those who are passionate about reducing suicide rates, that would be a big reduction right there. Or those who are passionate about finding the cure for cancer. A lot of times these fundraisers for research and development for stuff like that, they run into financial limitations. The March of Dimes, for example, that's an organization that it currently improves the health of mothers and babies through 5 programming areas: medical research, education of pregnant women, community programs, government advocacy, and support of pregnant women and mothers. But it started out as funding for research for polio. They had to go and ask people for donations, lots and lots of people for donations. But imagine just being able to have everything you need to do the research to help solve all these problems, these health issues in our society. Including, polio's already has a cure, but like cancer or HIV, something that would completely get rid of COVID, which, by the way, those shots were free at first, but now it's like $200 to get a COVID shot, because someone always has to make a profit off of the things that you might need or do need, but not a resource-based economy. Obesity would drastically drop just from the fact of not having a bunch of crap in our food. So way lower rates of heart disease and diabetes and other related diseases. We could even accommodate for meat eaters who don't want animals to be harmed in any way, because there's that lab-grown meat stuff. There's just currently no way for that to really take off because there's no funding. And also people have an aversion to the idea, but that could easily be changed. I don't know, that's kind of not super relevant. There'd be no need for big governments to regulate and spy on everything that we do, because everything would be transparent, including all the attempts that people might try to make to overthrow other people. But it would be a more democratic society, so there would be a lot less success with that. Like if someone started trickling in misinformation into our news outlets, which would be done very differently because they wouldn't be funded by private owners and shit. But if there were misinformation being trickled in, first of all, AI would be good at spotting that. Second of all, we'd be like, whoa, let's not do that. We can all have a town meeting or whatever, because we'd have the free time to, for one, anyway. And laws would be so much simpler. It'd basically be like, treat everyone how you want to be treated. There'd be no need to police everyone, because there'd be no aberrant behavior, because we'd have what we need, and we'd be actually civilized. And those who lose their way, so to speak, there'd be an intervention. People could hold space for that person super easily, way more easily than we do now, because right now we just repress everything all the damn time because we got to fit in, we got to act a certain way. But if we're holding space for people, letting them process stuff, honoring what people feel so that they don't feel like they need to hide what they feel and then develop all these dysfunctional behaviors, including harmful ones. And we'd stop punishing people with reward and punishment systems, because psychology would be it'd be more appreciated and understood if we're all healthier. And it would be understood that when you put incentives in place, external incentive, it robs the inherent incentive, which ruins the experience, which creates dissatisfaction and addiction response to things that otherwise would be inherently rewarding and wholesome. I can't really think of a good example of how we reward people, like with external stuff, other than like giving out trophies or like bonuses to those who make enough sales at work. So yeah, like Christmas bonuses for those who are paid salary. Like if it's the right thing to do to help people out, obviously like with sales that would not be relevant anymore, but the idea now is that you're not just making sales, you're helping the customer get your product or service. So like you're helping them, but then you might go out of your way to sell something just so that you can get that Christmas bonus. And it takes away from the inherent reward of helping people. Sorry, that was long-winded. But then of course like punishment is everywhere. And that like fucks us up. Because punishment is behavioral control. And people, they act out with these aberrant behaviors when they're experiencing emotional dysregulation, and they experience emotional dysregulation when they don't have what they need or feel like they're inferior or have been disrespected, invalidated, and so on. But that's all stuff that we would be eliminating the best that we can anyway. And that leads to like, well, what happens if someone is actively murdering someone? You're not going to sit there and try to have a little intervention for them when they're trying to murder you, right? And obviously not. There's a difference between restraint and punishment. Restrain them until you can help them get better, or they can help themselves, or it's like you can help them help themselves get better. That's the best way. Not just do all the work for them, because we all have to do our own inner work. It's best if we're all as independent as possible, or I should say interdependent. So restraint and rehabilitation work way better than just simply punishing. Punishing doesn't do anything about the cause. And this is something a lot of people are passionate about now, of course. But then they're up against the prison industrial complex. It's a for-profit system that profits off of people being in jail, and aka not being rehabilitated. And I could go on and 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 on with this stuff, and I plan to. Please imagine this stuff. Think of even other better ways that society could be improved. Don't let this oppressive system win, because I know it really takes a hold of me. And I get super pissed off and hurt. I want to isolate and give up. But we can get through this. We just have to be really clear. As Albert Einstein said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Our system is oppressive, and you can't fix oppression from within. We can creatively use the existing system to end the existing system and help us transition to a new system. But this current system is completely unsustainable and corrupt and oppressive. There are so many people who are passionate about helping, like solving hunger or curing cancer and other diseases, or helping rehabilitate prison inmates, or women's rights, including getting equal pay. That would not be necessary in a system that doesn't pay people. The system is super oppressive and unsustainable. We have tons of noble causes that are running into dead end. Why is that? Because we can't support each other enough to break through if we're all supporting the system that stops us from breaking through. We are hurting ourselves. We are sabotaging our causes by supporting this socioeconomic system. I dare you, I implore you to dream bigger, and please take care. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to stay up to date with even better content as I evolve and improve. If it feels right, consider leaving a comment. I'd be happy to read any questions or topic requests you may have. But whatever you do, please take care of yourself. As Desmond Tutu said, my humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together.